Welcome to the Bay Area Christian Church live stream. Today, we have a pretty cool service for you. We want you to get the most out of the live stream today, so we put some resources on bacc.cc/live. Our simple notes and doodle notes allow you to jot down thoughts, scriptures, and points to reflect on and to share with friends throughout the week. You can download these and other resources at bacc.cc/live. Speaking of resources, we also have 4 podcast episodes aimed at helping you take the lessons learned from today and continue to grow throughout the week. Visit bacc.cc/podcast to check them out. Listen to them as part of your own time with God or with a friend to discuss and to deepen your faith. 2020 has been a crazy year, but God has pushed us to grow in many ways that we couldn't have imagined. And so today, we want to celebrate that with our live stream service. What we prepared for you is a best of the live stream, which will take a look back on the pieces that have most inspired, moved us, and helped us to grow in the ways that God has called us to. Before we get started, make sure to like our video by clicking on the thumbs up icon below. And while you're at it, make sure to subscribe by clicking on the big red subscribe button. When you subscribe, it helps YouTube share our services with more people. With that, let's get started with our service.
Though I've fallen down over 7 times, though I've lost respect in the eyes of men, though I've compromised and I've turned to sins, because His love makes me strong, because His love makes me strong. Because His love makes me strong. Because His love makes me strong. So I will stand again through all the hard times, yeah. I will stand again. Forever my Lord is good. I will stand again. Say through all the hard times, yeah. I will stand. Though I've entered this world without a thing, I will stand again. And I've not experienced all that life could bring, I will stand again. I have a story that tells a life of change, I will stand again. Because His love makes me strong. 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 So I will stand again through all the hard times, yeah. I will stand again. Forever my Lord is good. I will stand again through all the hard times, yeah. I will stand again. I will stand again.
And now, coming to you live in front of no studio audience whatsoever, it's your hosts, Nathan and Vince.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nathan.
And I'm Vince.
And we are the digital media producers that are behind every live stream service that you see on Sundays.
We appreciate all the feedback and encouragement that we received since we transitioned into a live stream service this year.
We, along with the rest of the digital team, enjoy creating content that builds faith and helps us all do better spiritually.
And with our final live stream of 2020, we wanted to take a look back at some of the best that we've done.
We curated some of our favorite segments and lessons that stood out to us over the last months as some of the best of what we've been able to share with each other as we've all come together every Sunday since March 15th.
So to start us off, we wanted to take a look at just a little bit more Christmas. And by listening, Freedom Flow, what Christmas means to me.
And Santa might make an appearance now that he's safely back at the North Pole. After that, we'll get to hear from some of our amazing doctors in the fellowship and on what we can do to continue to combat COVID-19 and support one another during the stay-at-home order.
And next, we wanted to highlight different healthcare workers in our fellowships because they are the real superheroes. You know, they've spend time to help us stay safe and to heal those who have been sick.
One of the best lesson series that we had all year was the Hero's Journey. It was one of the most compelling series of sermons that showed us that we're all heroes on a journey to change ourselves and the world. So we want to hear from some of our favorite points from the series in hopes that we can all end 2020 rediscovering our passion and heading into 2021 looking to be heroes.
Let's dive in.
Oh yeah, candles burning low, lots of mistletoe, lots of snow and ice everywhere I go.
Choir singing carols right outside my door. All these things and more. All those things and more. That's what Christmas means to me, my love. Christmas means to me, my love. Yeah, you know it, I mean.
I see your smiling face like I've never seen before. And even though I love you madly, seems I love you more.
The little cards you give me will touch my heart for sure. All these things and more. All these things and more. That's what Christmas means to me, my love. Christmas means to me, my love.
I feel like running wild, as anxious as a little child.
Greet you near the radio. I twirl you once, then some more.
And wish you a Merry Christmas, baby. Wish you a Merry Christmas, baby. And such happiness in the coming year.
Deck the halls with holly, sings with silent night. Fill the dreams with angel hair, pretty, pretty lights.
Go to sleep and where you go just before daylight. All these things and more, baby.
All these things.
Oh, that's what Christmas means to me, my love.
All these things and more, darling.
Oh, that's what Christmas means to me, my love. Oh, yeah.
Ho, 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 ho. Merry Christmas. It's 5 days till Christmas. It's finally here. Time for presents, hot chocolate, and holiday cheer.
This year will look different. We know this is true. That's why we have some new Christmas stories for you. Sit back and relax as we tell you some tales of the wonderful life God has for us when friendship prevails.
When Donna Bussey heard there were 300 homeless students in her school district, she knew she had to do something about it. God put a vision in her heart, and she rallied her friends from Contra Costa North to create a new Doing Good project. The week before Thanksgiving, Donna and her friends delivered and unloaded 3 carloads of goods, including care packages, warm jackets, blankets, clothing, toiletries, and food to the Pittsburgh Unified School District, along with gift cards worth $1,500. The Pittsburgh School District recently wrote a letter to the Bay Area Christian Church recognizing what Donna and her friends did to serve the needs of so many students and families. Thank you for listening, and we're happy to say stories like these happen every day. God gives us all friends, whether far or near, who can give us hope to bring throughout the new year.
This is where we leave you. We hope you had fun. Have a very Merry Christmas and a happy 2021.
Although we're going to have some vaccines, we don't have them yet. That means that COVID is really something that we have to take seriously.
We have to keep going because we have made it this far. All of us can get battle weary, but we need to continue to pray. It's been challenging, but we will get to better times.
Continue to pay attention to hand hygiene, to social distancing, to masking, really making sure that you're not going to gatherings that are inside. And what that essentially means is there's really not a lot that we should be doing inside, if anything at all. Really paying attention to who you're spending time with, because you may be subjecting somebody to significant risk without even knowing it.
This is really all about caring for one another. And if for more information, you can go to what you see on your screen, and you'll be able to receive a lot more information regarding these guidelines. Very helpful. This is, again, all about protecting one another, and that's encouraging. That's faith building. Now is really the time to be creative in that way, to be thankful for what we've received, thankful that God has taken care of us and protected us and each other as well, not just ourselves. Let's look forward to celebrating safely.
We want to talk about the life. We want to put it all together and say, okay, Jesus lived this kind of life. How do we live that kind of life? All right. It's kind of simple. Let's dig in. The life compass. What can we learn from Jesus? In Luke 6:43, no good tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. Each tree is recognized by its own fruit. People do not pick figs from thorn bushes or grapes from briars. The good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and the evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For out of the overflow of his heart, his mouth speaks. What can we learn from Jesus? Throughout Jesus' early life, he apparently did not store things up. And because he didn't store things up, it gave him the freedom and the ability to actually understand himself and know himself. And I call that the life compass, a way to be able to navigate life. And here's a simple illustration for you. You knew we were going to give you a little something fun to deal with, all right? So I think the ultimate goal in life is to be you. Jesus was just himself, the Son of God. Now that sounds pretty awesome, but we're not all going to get that tagline. But he was himself. He had to navigate anxiety, insecurity, and intimacy. Those are the three big ones that stop all of us. I know it did for me. In adolescence, my greatest challenges were anxiety, insecurity, and how to feel and be close to people, how to reveal myself and be vulnerable. So I want you to think about that. How do you navigate your anxiety? How do you navigate your insecurity? How comfortable are you talking about intimacy, being close to people? How comfortable are you revealing yourself? You can't even discover yourself until you fight the battle of anxiety. Then you got to fight the battle of insecurity. Then you got to fight the battle of intimacy and figure this out. That's when you start to figure yourself out. The broken compass. You say, well, okay, can you tell me a little bit more? Sure. In Psalm 119, verse 104, your commandments give me understanding. No wonder I hate every false way of life. Your word is a lamp to guide my feet and a light for my path, the road to originality. I believe that each one of us has a destiny. And I think the Bible backs that up. Page after page, each one of us has a destiny. But what happens is things throw us off the path. Each one of us have a destiny. things throw us off the path. As our commitment speaker spoke about so eloquently, they became Christians and they found this path. The key is to find your path. But the problem is, when you got that compass in your hand, guess what happens? Anxiety makes you think that north, true north, and let's define true north. True north is a phrase used that's connected to compasses, right? And true north, in a way, it's about knowing exactly what you believe and sticking to it. Knowing exactly who you are and sticking to it. That's true north. The problem is anxiety provides a false north. If you listen to and live by your anxiety all the time, you will actually end up going in the wrong direction. If you listen to and go by your insecurity all the time, you'll end up going in the wrong direction. And based on our little compass right there, you'll be going backwards instead of forwards. If you listen to false intimacy, because that's a false north, false intimacy, meaning that it's not really someone who's close to you. A lot of us get false intimacy when we watch celebrities and we go, oh, that's my favorite person. I feel so close to them because I like their music. They don't know you. You don't know them. That's not real intimacy. Some of us feel false intimacy because we have a social media friend. We go, oh, that's my Facebook friend. We're tight. That's the friend I play video games with. We're tight. No, that's false intimacy, and it'll give you a false north. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying that a lot of us end up getting confused in life because we get drawn into our anxiety, drawn into our insecurity, fear of what people think of us and whether we've achieved enough, and drawn into weird intimacy issues. Intimacy issues that end up dealing with not being faithful to people, not pursuing a true and deep relationship with someone moving toward marriage, not building a great relationship with people of your same gender to be great friends and reveal who you are and they reveal who they are so you can have all that. When you get deceived by all these false paths, it breaks your compass. You end up going in the wrong direction. I can trace a lot of areas of my life where I ended up going in the wrong direction simply because I was being deceived by my anxiety, by my insecurity, or confused by my lack of understanding of intimacy. We got to break through these to get to originality.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. Since I laid my burdens down. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Since I laid my burdens down. I don't sing the songs that I used to. Since I lay my burdens down, way down, I don't sing the songs that I used to. Since I lay my burdens down, way on down.
Well, open up your mind and see like me. Open up your plans and then you're free. Look into your heart and you'll find love, 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 love. Listen to the music of the moment, people dance and sing. We're just one big family, and it's your God intended right to be love, 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 love. So I won't hesitate no more, no more. It cannot wait. I'm sure there's no need to complicate. Our time is short. This is our fate. I'm yours. Well, open up your mind and see like me. Open up your plans and then you're free. Look into your heart and you'll find the sky is yours. Please don't, please don't. No need to complicate. Our time is short. This is our fate. I'm yours.
Finally finished.
Dude, what happened?
Man, that healthcare worker slideshow and that freedom flow, they get me every time.
Well, The Life Compass meant a lot to me because 2020 has been crazy and unpredictable.
Pull yourself together. Now for our next segment, let's take a look at the Change episode about understanding our possibilities. In this episode, we talked about how even though the world can be negative and you might feel like a mess, but there is a God and He believes in you.
This year has been hard, but rather than only seeing obstacles and difficulties, with God, we can look for opportunities. No matter where we are today, we can start our new year with faith.
And right after that clip, we're going to look at one of the best stories of the week on how we can imitate rediscovering our passion in times like these.
The hero's journey. And we want to get you to let that burden go and be able to reclaim to God and say, look, God, I want to be yours, because God certainly wants you to be His, because when we belong to God, we begin to understand our possibilities. That's right. The world is too negative, and it's continually, almost from the time we're crawling, the world is telling us what we can't do. What we can't do because of our size, what we can't do because of our height, what we can't do because of our IQ, what we can't do because of the country we're from, the language we speak, the color of our skin, where we went to school, where we grew up. There's so many terrible things that are done to destroy faith in our minds that there is a God and that God believes in you. And that part of the journey is the mess. The mess isn't the end of the journey, it's part of the journey. And when we begin to learn our human limits, when we begin to see those messes, I know in my life, throughout it, even as a Christian, I've made so many mistakes and committed so many sins that have crushed me and broken me and humbled me. It's felt easier maybe to quit and give up, and yet hanging on, friends keeping me hanging on, helped me to understand my possibilities. In 2 Corinthians 12 and verse 7, the extraordinary level of the revelations I've received is no reason for anyone to exalt me. For this is why a thorn in my flesh was given to me, the adversary's messenger sent to harass me, keeping me from becoming arrogant. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to relieve me of this. Part of understanding our possibilities comes through facing failure with faith. That's how we learn, facing failure with faith. Failure is not fatal. It simply is not. People can tell you that, the world can tell you that, but it simply is not true. I'll never forget moving to the Bay Area in 1993. I was fortunate enough to be part of a Stanford executive education program on innovation. I had just moved here. It was about 1994 that I was in the program. At the program, I had an opportunity to hear some great people. Jim Collins is one, the author and business thinker of Good to Great and Built to Last. He had released his book, Built to Last, the time I entered into the program, and he actually gave us first copies of the published book. Extraordinary book, extraordinary thinker. I actually had a chance to talk to him for some time and learned a great deal that shaped my thinking, or I should say, reshaped my thinking about what church ought to be like. But the interesting thing was the evening, the final evening. There were only about 50 people in the program, and I remember going to the Stanford Faculty Club. That's where the last evening was held. And as I walked in, I was excited because teaching at that time was Steve Jobs before he got to Apple. And I had read the book Odyssey. Interesting, we're talking about the hero's journey. Odyssey, written by John Scully, about his story of leaving Pepsi to go work for Steve Jobs at Apple. And of course, the difficulty of that story is that John Scully, who Steve Jobs brings into Apple, ends up firing Steve Jobs. Yeah, how about that for failure? You bring someone in and they fire you and take over your company. How about that for failure? Your best friend takes your girlfriend to the prom and leaves you at home, telling you that prom's on Saturday night when it was really on Friday night. Bam! How about that for failure? I remember Steve Jobs was there and he was teaching. He talked about 3 things that he thought were of high quality. Whole Foods was just getting started, Odwalla drinks, which were just getting started, and a little bitty company, in the words of Jack Black, a little bit of something called Pixar that he had just bought and was investing in. He was in the midst of failure at a company called Next. I walked him out. And I'm not saying I know him well, that's just an experience. I don't know him at all. I mean, I didn't know him at all. I wouldn't consider myself anybody there. But I got to walk him out and I asked him some questions about Silicon Valley and asked if I could come over to Next. And he said, why would you want to come over there? It's just computers on desk. But I was profoundly impacted by the talk that I won't get into. But the point I want to make is even then, because I was new to the Bay Area, I didn't realize he was in the midst of failure. And that would be part of his journey that would lead to Stanford, where he gave one of the greatest commencement speeches in history, and the revival of Apple, which is unmatched in the turnaround in corporate America ever. Why? Because he understood that failure is not fatal, and it inspires me to this day. FDR is another example. He gets polio, he's taken out of politics, comes back because he understands that failure is not fatal. Abraham Lincoln lost more than any politician I know of, but he came back and became a transformative president because failure is not fatal. Let's go back to Michael Jordan in The Last Dance. He leaves basketball, it seemed like for good, to go play baseball, and was like, okay, I'm done with this. That chapter's over. And he came back, failed when he came back, got beat by the Orlando Magic. I'm shaking my head when Nick Anderson stole the ball from him. People, you know what I'm talking about. Came back the next year, ran off 3 championships in a row. Why? Because failure is not fatal. Watch episodes 7 and 8 if you don't know what I'm talking about. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, shame on you for not watching Last Dance. I'm just joking. Facing failure with faith. Paul had been allowed to come up to the third heaven, it says. Why does God put stuff like that in the Bible? Why does he put things like Revelation in the Bible? He wants you to know that earth is not it. He wants you to know that we have no comprehension of how many levels of spiritual existence are around us. Paul was allowed to see some of that. And because he was allowed to see some of that, God said, you're going to get super arrogant. You're going to have some weakness in your life. You're going to have some weakness to balance that advantage. All of us have human weakness. And what we have to understand is that wrapped up in our human weakness, possibilities. 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9. Look at this. But he answered me. This is his answer. Paul said, please get it out of my life. Get the weakness out of my life. I don't want to be weak. I don't want to fail. I don't want to be looked down on. I don't want to be condescended to. Are you somebody who gets made fun of a lot? I was made fun of as a kid. Yeah, I was. You got to be able to go, you know what? Take that away and it doesn't go away. Even though you go, I got to do this. I got to get this away. It doesn't go away because God's shaping you. If you were bullied as a kid, I'm not saying that's good, but God's going to use that to make you somebody incredible. If you moved to this country and you came here and you feel like no one treats you like you really belong, God's going to use that. If you've had a sickness, an ailment, a mental health challenge, a disability, God's going to use that. He didn't cause that, but he's going to use that weakness. With Paul, he said, he's essentially saying everybody has weakness because everybody's human. In 2 Corinthians 12:9. But he answered me, my grace is always more than enough for you. My power finds its full expression through your weakness. If you don't want to own your weakness, he's saying, if you don't want to believe in your weakness, if you don't want to talk about your weakness, you'll never know God's power. Now let's think about that for a minute. Beyond human limits. Could it be that the reason that we're not getting beyond human limits is we are unwilling to admit we have weaknesses? You know, sometimes in churches, people get in churches and start performing and nobody wants to admit they have a weakness. We get in groups and nobody wants to open up because we all think the goal of being in a group is to be perfect. When you go to work, sometimes people not sometimes, a lot. People get in a meeting with the boss, the supervisor, the CEO, the product manager, and nobody wants to admit a mistake. Why? Because weakness many times in life is punished. Somebody makes a mistake, somebody does something wrong, we punish. We incarcerate in prison more people than any other nation in the world. We have no concept societally of how do you rehabilitate somebody. That's because that's in the province of God. He says, you show me your weakness and I'll show you my power. How about that? You show me your weakness, I'll show you my power. And look at what Paul says. He says, I get it. So I will celebrate my weakness. Paul said, hey, if weakness is going to get me more power, I'm going to have parties every time I have weakness. Have you had a weakness party recently? Get on Zoom and declare it, weakness party. That's right, weakness party. And everybody share their weaknesses. I can't draw. I draw for this thing. I do all the original artwork, and they make sure they never show it to you because you'd freak out. But I do the original artwork, but they never show it to you. They don't freak people out. Share your weaknesses. So I will celebrate my weaknesses, for when I'm weak, I sense more deeply the mighty power of Christ living in me. Have you got anything in your life that's conquering you? Well, I'm going to bet it's because you haven't admitted that it's conquering you. The first step to conquering is to admit you've been conquered in Christianity. And that's why Christianity's tough for a lot of people. People want self-help books where they learn the 72 steps to how I can lose weight, right? The 72 steps to how I can lose weight, instead of just going ahead and admitting I'm overweight. The 72 steps to being really brilliant in school, instead of saying, school's tough for me. The 72 steps to how to get to the NBA, instead of admitting I'm not going to the NBA. I had to do that. I'm still crying about that. Magic Johnson took my place. We'll talk about that later. So, understanding our possibilities. Let's get to those roads. See, what happens is, after you've been on the doubt road, it leads to the decision stage. And you know what the decision is? It's the decision of whether you're going to leave or you're going to grow. A lot of people, when they go through the difficulty of life, they leave God, they leave church, because they feel like if I can just get that out of my life, that's one less stressor. And that's really the thing. When you get to the decision stage in the journey, you either leave or you grow. And if you decide to grow, you get on the growing road. And the growing road leads to the explorer stage. That's when you start to really begin to understand spirituality. You're no longer going to church to perform and for the rules. You're starting to see things you never saw before. You're starting to believe things you never believed before. And you're starting to realize that, wow, I have these weaknesses, but God's going to help me overcome them. You start having these ideas of what you could be and what you could do. And you start realizing, wow, I could maybe do this. I could maybe be that. But then you realize what you're thinking about is so beyond you that it puts you on the humbling road. You're not on the humbling road because you failed. You're on the humbling road because you realize just your level of inadequacy and unworthiness, and you're going to God to say, can you compensate for my inadequacy and my unworthiness? Because I want that dream. And once you start thinking like that, once you start being on the humbling road and you're saying, I got a dream, I believe it's possible, I could change lives. Maybe I could be one of the people who goes to a second act city in the Bay Area and we plan it like we've talked to the Hofstetters about doing, go to a second act city, put a house church there. I'm going to be one of the people who does that. Maybe I'm going to become a volunteer for the e-programs, and we're going to talk all about that later on in another episode that's coming up next week, that vision episode. But you're at that explorer stage. You're getting excited. You're on the humbling road. I'm not adequate, but I am willing. And once you're at that level, once you're you're not adequate, and once you're willing, you're in the walking stage where you're really walking with God. And you're getting into that rare air, which puts you on the wilderness road. Oh yeah, the wilderness road is scary, because you're out there without a parachute, man. You jumped out of the plane and you're floating and you just realize, I left something in the plane. I don't have my parachute. That's walking with God. Walking with God is not hanging on to something. How does Disney say it? It's letting it go. They said, let it go. That's what it really means to walk with God. A lot of people think, I have a quiet time. I read my Bible in the morning and I pray. Well, good for you. People eat breakfast too. Good for them. What matters is there power surging through your life that gets you into the wilderness where you've let it all go and your life is all about discovery.
Fatherhood is one of the most rewarding and challenging experiences in life, especially when your children are born with unique health difficulties and special needs. Two fathers that inspire me by their perseverance and their purposeful lives are Joe Famarico and Ben Murray. When he became a father, Joe Famarico didn't anticipate that his daughter Janelle would have to undergo open heart surgery at 5 days old and a second heart surgery at 4 months old at the Oakland Children's Hospital. Even in the midst of the most difficult circumstances, God is always working. There in the ICU, the Famaricos' paths crossed with a single mom named Julia and her 6-year-old son Tommy. Tommy happened to share the same hospital room with Janelle and was there for brain surgery due to being born with a condition called hydrocephalus. Instead of being overcome by their difficulties, Joe and his wife Pressy chose to reach out to Julia during this time and encouraged her with scriptures. Over time, Julia studied the Bible and became a Christian.
I wanted to befriend her. Also to see that our kids, had something in common, even though it was in the hospital, that, one day they could, be able to look back and see where they came from. It was great to see Tommy, later on when Janelle had a procedure done. Actually last year that Tommy came to visit her after when Janelle was, she was very sick in the hospital. During these hard times, we had to rely on God more, of course, but it was great to see the brothers and sisters stepping up as well.
It was at our very own spiritual resource ministry that Julia met a single father named Ben Murray, who was raising 2 sons, one of which had autism. Julia was inspired by Ben's heart to love and serve despite the personal responsibilities he had. Soon after, Ben and Julia started dating and eventually got married.
Well, I'm not a prayerful, spiritual man by nature, but the situations have dictated that I become that. You've made sacrifices for your children and for your career and sometimes for the church, and you just feel hopeless. And finding a way to honestly pray through those challenging times and not fall into despair and sin and hopelessness. I've had to realize that God's calling for me is greater than that, because I am called to be here and be a part of my children's lives. And that's enough. That has to be enough. And I'm coming to grips with that. That's enough. If I can do well at this, all the rest of that is irrelevant.
Their daughter Janelle and Ben's son Tommy are now both in their 20s and continue to go through different health challenges. Despite these obstacles, Janelle became a Christian as a teenager and now attends San Francisco State University. And just a few months ago, Tommy was able to study the Bible and become a Christian as well. Both Joe and Ben are incredible examples of fathers who sacrifice, work hard to provide for their families and to give to others despite the pressures and challenges of their lives. If you have a story to share, you can send an email here to live@bacc.cc.
It's times like these you learn to live again. It's times like these you give and give again. It's times like these you learn to love again. It's times like these, time and time again.
Upon tonight, I'm a little divided. Do I stay or run away or leave it all behind? It's times like these you learn to live again. It's times like you give and give again. It's times like these you learn to love again.
times like these, time and time again.
In the coldest times, do you find your soul to die? Do you plant seeds that multiply? Gotta think for yourself, so I wrote the rhymes. Coming through your TV like the poltergeist. My natural instincts get to running. I gotta level out when in doubt, then I'm gunning. Like an AR when my brain starts coming with insane thoughts. We can take off from the plummet. Turning these mountains to molehills. What we zoom it out? How can potential be fulfilled? We could do without. Some are just living with no will. Never to amount. Some of you utensils of gold still. What are you about? Who's refined without fire? Loads can make us go higher. Nowhere to go but the sky. When the hope inside gets me up enough to pull my soul to drive.
Encourage my soul and let us journey on. For the night is dark and I am far from home.
Thanks be to God, the morning light appears.
The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
What a throwback to Quarantunes. That song encourages my soul. Times like these really do teach us a lot. And I've seen God presenting me with a lot of opportunities for growth that I wouldn't have otherwise had. Even though it hasn't been easy, opportunities to grow have arisen because of times like these, not in spite of them. Vince and I, we have a passion for film and video production. And working on the live stream has given us the opportunity to stretch us beyond what we thought we were capable of. While before it was easy to be overcome by doubt and even our laziness, being in this time has forced us to rely on God more, which has led to opportunities we couldn't even have imagined.
Yep, that's right. And Joe Famalico and Ben, man, you guys are super inspiring. I got no excuses left after that.
Me neither. So let's keep moving on to the next stage of the hero's journey, changing the world by changing the church. In this episode, we love the point about our inspiration comes from our connection to God.
Connection to God brings us hope and helps us to rediscover our passion, regardless of our past or our mistakes. Being connected to God not only takes humility and helps us grow, it also leads us to discover our destiny beyond just ourselves. With this in mind, we'll get to see our audience favorite Sunday morning jetpack and learn how rediscovering our passion is not just about ourselves, but also about helping those around us.
Let's get practical. Let's dig in and go, okay, what do we actually have to personally do to make the church a place that's attractive and can inspire those who don't go to church and have no interest in God? We can do this. That was me. I was a total agnostic, didn't go to church, had no interest in church, was negative on church, was negative on Christians, and guess what? Here I am. How'd that happen? Because people actually had some magic in their life. They had some power in their life that I met. It wasn't about that they just were religious. In fact, the guys I got to know, they weren't all that religious, so probably it was very helpful. They were inspiring though. Inspiration. What we have to do, all of us in our relationship with God, is go, am I inspiring? Am I inspired and am I inspiring? And that comes down to being connected or disconnected from God. Abide in me and I will abide in you. A branch cannot bear fruit if it is disconnected from the vine, and neither will you if you are not connected to me. Scott Green's one of my best friends ever, and he was in the little posse I traveled with Guillermo Adame, Frank Kim, and Brian Scanlon, and Rob Burns, a bunch of us. We were college students. And guess what? We would talk about this passage, and we all believed, and Scott Green particularly led me to believe, this was a passage about relationships. For some of us who are older, we may think it's a passage about growth. We may think it's a passage about church growth. We may even have remembered it as a passage about how you manage a church. None of that's true. It's a passage about connection or disconnection. How are you living in your relationship with God? Are you emotionally connected to God? Are you spiritually connected to God? Does obedience flow from your love for God, or does obedience flow from a fear that you may fail and people may look at your behavior negatively? Inspiration comes from connection. That's where your faith gets built up. That's where my faith gets built up. That's where we get the hope after we failed. That's where we get the sense that we can get past our sins. That's where we get the sense that we can get past our guilt, that we can get past our mistakes, that we can get past all of the burdens of the past that weigh on our soul, that give us a crisis of soul. That's what inspiration is all about. And guess what? That's the first part of our staff, the staff of God, our personal staff of God. And yep, you know what that is up there at the top. That's the telescope of faith. You can go back and look at our live streams from earlier, but we're going to be able to insert all the little things we've learned about right into the staff. How about that? We'll be able to take it all. Let's keep going. I'm slowing down. I can't slow down. Humility, obedience or resistance before God. I should slow down. I think you guys are, you know what? A couple more slides. I'm gonna let you have that Cinnabon. Keep your hands off the Cinnabons for now. Okay? Burke household, I know you got Cinnabons. Easy. Easy. Don't open that package yet. Humility, obedience or resistance before God. I am the vine and you are the branches. If you abide in me and I in you, you will bear great fruit. Without me, you will accomplish nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is like a branch that is tossed out and shrivels up, and his leader gathered to be tossed in the fire to burn. Everybody always goes, I used to say this, oh, they're going to be tossed in the fire to burn in hell. Oh, I'm not sure that's what that says. He's telling us that the way that the church works, it's a lot like a yard works. And when branches shrivel up and die, and they fall to the ground, whether they're cut or not, basically there's no value in them. They now are firewood. In other words, when we don't have God in our life, we dry up. And we're basically, our only purpose is to bring heat, I guess. There's no real growth value anymore. We want to have growth value, and that comes by abiding in God. That comes by knowing that there's nothing we can accomplish without God. And I think we got to believe that thousands of people, millions of people can be reached, that they can find out about God, they can find out about the truth, if we will just say, this has got to be done through humility. Not us talking about how great our strategy is, not us talking about how cool our church activities are, but us getting down into the nitty gritty of saying, do I have an obedience to God or do I have a resistance to God? Abiding in God, abide comes from the word abode, which means to make your home there. Is my home with God or am I kind of renting? Am I kind of just showing up every now and then? We got to really work on it. It takes humility. For me anyway, I don't know about you. It takes humility for me to go, Russ, I'm inadequate. I know that. I'm unworthy. I'm incapable. I'm not smart enough. This thing's got to be done with God. And if it ever fails, it's because I left God, not because God left me. And if we dive into that level of humility, I think amazing things will happen. And there you have it. You got the telescope of faith and the hero's journey, because it takes humility to travel that hero's journey. And see, we get to put the map right in the old staff of God. You see that right there? You got the telescope, put the map in there. It's getting fun. I know it is enjoyable.
What's up, guys? This is Sunday Morning Jetpack. My name is Kenzo, and today I'm here with Parker, Alexis, and our new guest, Vondell.
So today we're going to be talking about compassion and the importance of a relationship with God, especially regarding the racism that has permeated our country for so long. And it's really important to listen and understand in this time now more than ever.
Being in this time is hard, and it brings up a lot of things in my past. It is sad to see that people have to die and be hurt to get the world's attention to feel our pain. I grew up in Alaska and went to elementary school where it was predominantly white. I was made fun of because of my speech impediment, and both teachers and other kids made assumptions about me just because I was black. Teachers questioned if my schoolwork was actually my work, and kids also didn't want to play with me unless we were playing sports. Even as I played football from the 7th grade through college, I was judged as a black quarterback and compared to white players who they assumed would make better decisions than me on and off the field. It hurt my heart. It made me question who I was. And I know that I'm not the only one who has a story like this. So many other people have pain in their hearts too.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who have hearts that are hurting out there. This is how Jesus responded when he saw pain in the people around him. In Matthew 9, verse 36 to 38 in the Voice, it says, whenever crowds came to him, he had compassion for them because they were so deeply distraught. malaise, and heartbroken. They seemed to him like lost sheep without a shepherd. Jesus understood what an awesome task was before him. So he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest to send more workers into his harvest field."
For me, coming from a non-Black perspective, I know that I can't even begin to imagine what Black people and other people of color go through every day. But what I can do is listen and have compassion. Jesus' response to the pain he saw was not to tell those in pain how to feel, but to turn to God and take action to help them. He prayed for more workers, for more people to listen, and more people to care. This is why I need my relationship with God. So many times over the past week, I've been so tempted to just want to harden my heart, to cut myself off from feeling everything that's going on in the world. But I know that not everyone has the luxury to just get to do that. I need to fight to go to God every day, to pray for my heart to stay soft and caring, and to pray for people who are hurting, and to give that same love to other people that God has really given to me.
Having a relationship with God helped me to face the facts that even though I had a speech impediment, that I was also different than everybody else. God accepted me for who I was. Despite the prejudice and pain, I chose to love and endure. I saw playing quarterback in college as an opportunity to love my teammates and friends, giving them a helping hand, buying them food, and when they needed a place to stay, I also provided that. Also helping and building the youth by inspiring them to chase their dreams. I encourage us to take a look around you and choose to love and care for others around us.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear and bitterness and hate in the hearts of people everywhere. You know, being sheltered in place has brought much of our world to a standstill. And this forces many of us to face the emotions, the hurt, the pain in both ourselves and others that were easy to ignore during the busyness of life. Now is the time for compassion and for empathy. This is too big of a fight for ourselves. But just like Jesus did, we need to spend time with God every day to get the strength we need to stay in the fight. That is how real change comes. Which brings us to the song we're going to be looking at today, Change by J. Cole. He says, "My intuition is telling me there'll be better days. I sit in silence and find whenever I meditate, my fears alleviate, my tears evaporate, my faith don't deviate, ideas don't have a date. But see, I'm growing and getting stronger with every breath." And then later in the song he says, "But the only real change comes from inside."
Yeah, this is a great song because J. Cole acknowledges the need to change what's on the inside. When there are storms all around us, our fears are alleviated when we sit in silence and get strength from God. In the world right now, there are storms that feel impossible to face, but we need that strength from God to be able to get through it. We get that strength through our times with Him by holding on to scriptures and praying. And that is your Sunday morning jetpack. See you guys next week.
Hi, I'm Nick Straw from Silicon Valley South. I want to read a scripture that highlights how Jesus was different for communion. John 12:24 and 27, it reads, "I tell you the truth, unless a kernel of wheat is planted in the soil and dies, it remains alone, but its death will produce many new kernels, a plentiful harvest of new lives. Now my soul is deeply troubled. Should I pray, Father, save me from this hour? But this is the very reason I came." Jesus was different. His willingness to give up himself to save us is why he inspires us. What made Jesus different was he wasn't focused on himself. He was focused on his purpose, giving up his life to save others, giving them a chance to know God and to live differently. Let's pray. God, I thank you that you sent your son so we can have an opportunity to have a relationship with you, that he died for us, that he gave up himself so we could have a chance to live differently, to live new lives. We thank you for a sacrifice, and I pray, God, we can leave today living differently and sacrificing and giving to others ourselves. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Watch us where we go.
luce che tu hai.
I pray we'll find your light
Ora resterà.
and hold it in our
A
heart.
ricordarci che
When stars go out each night,
l'eterna stella sei. Nella mia preghiera
let this be our prayer.
quanto fede sei.
When shadows fill our day, lead us to a place. Guide us with your grace. Give us faith so we'll be saved.
Sogniamo un mondo senza più
violenza,
un mondo di giustizia, di speranza. Ognuno di l'amore al suo vicino, simbolo di pace e fraternità. La forza che si ha.
We ask that life be kind
Desio che
and watch us from above.
ognuno ti amo.
We hope each soul will find
Intorno dentro a sé.
another soul to love. Let this be our prayer. Let this be our prayer.
Just like every child.
Just like every child needs to find a place. Guide us with your grace. Give us faith so we'll be saved. E la fede che hai acceso in noi.
Sento che ti salverò.
When we give our contribution, we are actively building a future with a solid foundation, no matter what stage of life we're in. As parents of 2 teenage daughters, my husband and I treasure the work that's being done to build strong middle school, teen, and campus ministries that are helping our girls develop hearts of service, leadership, and compassion. We know that giving contribution is one way each of us can actively build the future with confidence. Now let's take a moment to give contribution and snap along to the PayPal Giving Fund tune.
We've had such a great time looking over these segments with you today for our live stream service.
And they remind us that we're so lucky to be together. And God has moved some incredible ways this year. Though there were dark times, so many of us decided to be a light. From mask making to Zoom cooking to giving food and donating money and gifts over the holidays. Here's a look back on how far we've come and all the good that we've been able to do this year together.
With that, we're signing off. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. And we wish you a happy and safe New Year's. Enjoy this final video and we'll see you in 2021.
And to all my Chinese and Taiwanese friends out there, 新年快乐.
Good morning. It's great to see everybody, and we hope you're keeping each other encouraged during the time of challenge that the coronavirus pandemic presents.
I want to bring you an incredible story.
The wonderful Silicon Valley South sector.
Contra Costa South.
Santa Clara.
San Francisco sector. And we lead the great Silicon Valley North.
Alameda North sector.
With the great people in Contra Costa North.
Families have been lining up to pick up these carefully prepared, no-contact meals. And now they have one less thing to worry about during these challenging times.
So far, they have helped around a dozen seniors find some peace and encouragement through this time.
Rather than let her friend feel excluded and discouraged, Nicole saw this as an opportunity to teach others ASL over Zoom together with Grace.
Our main goal is to be a multi-tiered response to poverty in Oakland, meaning it's not just food, it's not just a hot meal, but more than that.
Hey guys, this is Sunday Morning Jetpack.
We're going to be showing you any type of media, be it music, podcasts, movies, and just some much needed good energy.
Welcome to Glory Days, where we're making our current days our best days.
One of our favorite segments is God and Science. We are still uncovering the mysteries of the coronavirus and the human body, but neither are a mystery to God.
Fellowship Sunday happened in locations all over the Bay Area. It happened in a beautiful park in Hercules where the Locks and their house church were gathered. Inspired by their fellowship, a lady passed by. She joined them and stayed the entire time.
And I want you to realize, no matter where your life's at, where your business is at, where your marriage is at, no man is a failure. No woman is a failure who has friends. That's what it means to have a wonderful life.
Everyone, thanks for watching, and before you leave, make sure you like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We post original content all throughout the week. Or head over to Deep Spirituality YouTube channel to find engaging and creative content to help you go deeper in your relationship with God.